Zhou Dianping's disappointment showed plainly when Ye Wudao stayed calm. He couldn't believe Lao Ye had lost so much nerve. How could he stand there and take it so quietly? Zhou Mother and Zhou Xiaomei bustled to bring the food and a bottle of good wine to the low table, then pulled up small stools and sat. By local custom, women usually didn't sit at the drinking table, but tonight they did. The mood around the table grew a little strained. Ye Wudao and Zhou Dianping were quiet. Zhou Hu and Zhou Mother talked more openly. "Third aunt, you asked me over because of something important, right?" Zhou Hu said. Zhou Mother answered, "Hu Zi, I wanted to know where the village stands on the demolition." Although he didn't hold the official title, Zhou Hu was the village strongman. Everyone, even the party secretary, treated him with respect. Zhou Hu shook his head. "We can't allow the demolition. Absolutely not. You know, most people here work at the chemical plant. That plant belongs to the village too. If it's pulled down, what will we live off? The little bit of compensation they'll give won't last a lifetime." Zhou Mother nodded in agreement. Ye Wudao suddenly understood. Their opposition wasn't principled resistance so much as fear for their future. If the plant went, the villagers would lose their livelihoods. For Ye Wudao, that wasn't an unsolvable problem. The medicinal field project would definitely go ahead, and when it did, it would need a huge amount of labor. Who better to hire than these villagers, already used to work at an industrial site? He leaned forward. "If I can help you find work that pays tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands a month, would you agree to the demolition?" A stunned silence fell over the low table. Then the men burst out laughing. Old farmers earning tens or hundreds of thousands a month? It was absurd. "Ha ha, you've got some nerve," someone scoffed. "You can't even find a decent job for yourself, and you think you can bring jobs to us. Hundreds of thousands a month? If that kind of work existed, do you think we'd be the first in line? You'd have been doing it yourself long ago." Zhou Hu laughed until he was nearly crying. "Brother, I admire your confidence, really admire your thick skin." He wiped his eyes and grinned. "But if you can actually line up those jobs for everyone in our village, we'll cooperate fully with the demolition." Ye Wudao answered simply, "It's a deal." "Ha, deal," Zhou Hu echoed. Zhou Dianping felt embarrassed. When had Ye Wudao learned to talk like that? Nowadays, it was hard to find a job that paid 5,000 a month, let alone hundreds of thousands. This sounded like empty bragging. They chatted a little longer about small things, then Zhou Hu stood to leave. At the doorway, Zhou Xiaomei called after him, "Brother Hu, one more thing." He paused. "Yeah? When will we set a date? We're not getting any younger." It turned out Xiaomei had used the meeting as an excuse to push the marriage issue. Zhou Hu hemmed and hawed. Soon. Once this busy season's over, we'll get engaged." With that, he slipped away. Xiaomei looked deflated. Zhou Dianping couldn't resist. "Xiaomei, don't you see? Zhou Hu doesn't seem keen on marrying you." "Even if you did, you wouldn't be happy," she added bluntly. Xiaomei shot him a furious look. "Shut up. Don't pretend you're not scheming. You just want me to marry your ex-convict friend." "How dare you? Your ex-convict friend isn't even fit to tie Brother Hu's shoes." Dianping flushed. How can you say that?" "Did I say anything wrong?" Xiaomei shot back. "Don't underestimate Brother Hu because he lives in the village. He's got connections up in the military. He'll make it big someday." Ye Wudao, who had been quiet the whole time, finally looked up at that. Zhou Hu had military connections. Coupled with his strong opposition to the demolition, the detail sat with Ye like a new piece in a jigsaw puzzle. A bold idea began to form in his mind. Chapter 142, Discovering a Medicinal Field. "This Zhou Hu, I'm pretty sure he was sent by Hu Longquan, isn't he?" someone muttered. "Humph, I knew Hu Longquan wouldn't give up. The more trouble he stirs up, the better for old Ye. It'll help him flush out the remnants and cut the weeds at the root." Zhou Xiaomei's mother tugged her daughter aside. "Don't waste so much breath on them. Let's go rest." "Dianping, don't forget to wash the dishes," she scolded. Zhou Dianping forced a bitter smile. "Old Ye, come on. Let's go back to my room and drink a little more." "Don't leave tonight. I have so much to tell you." Ye Wudao nodded and followed him inside. Dianping produced a treasured bottle of erguatu and a bowl of peanuts. He and Ye Wudao drank together. There was food waiting in the living room, but Dianping didn't touch it. Zhou presence the night before had left him chilled and resentful. He kept drinking until he fell asleep on the bed, snoring loudly. Ye Wudao, however, pulled out his phone. He sent a terse message to the directors at Rene Pharmaceutical, discovered a medicinal field. Bring 100 million tomorrow to meet me. Rene Pharmaceutical was the powerhouse of Yanxia's pharmaceutical industry. Its chairman was Ye Wudao's disciple, Yao Xiazi. In truth, Renhe was really Ye Wudao's as well. He'd simply left it in his disciple's hands because he didn't want to manage it. 1,000 miles away in Renhe's chairman's office, Yao Xiazi read the message and felt tears sting his eyes. Another medicinal field, another one. Yanxia now had 5 medicine fields. Out of the 7 known worldwide, 5 were in Yanxia. Bless our Yanxia, he thought, barely containing his excitement. Secretary Wang, prepare the helicopter. Fly to Linhai immediately, he ordered. The next morning, the low thrum of rotors woke Zhou village. 2 helicopters eased down to a stop at the village entrance, and the place erupted. These villagers had farmed their whole lives. Most had never seen a helicopter up close, and all of them crowded to the road to gawk. Zhou Dianping's family pushed their way into the crush. Along the way, they were greeted with a chorus of snide comments. Old Zhou, I never thought your reformed labor friend would still be thinking of you. He couldn't make it out there and came crawling back to you for refuge? If he's depending on you, he'll starve to death. Apparently, Zhou Hu had been busy spreading the story about his reform through labor friend last night. Now the whole village knew, and the Zhao family had become a joke. Dianping swore under his breath, red with fury, but nothing stopped the villagers' teasing. Zhou Xiaomei and her mother looked mortified. You two have completely shamed us, they hissed. By the time they reached the entrance, the helicopters were surrounded 3 rows deep on both sides. Adults crowded forward and children squealed, wanting to touch the aircraft, only to be scolded by watchful elders who reminded them how much money such machines were worth. The Zhou family squeezed their way to the front, and Zhou Xiaomei's eyes lit up as she peered into the cabin. It's so luxurious. If I could just sit in it once, I'd die happy. Ye Wudao allowed himself a small smile. If you'd been a little kinder to me last night, perhaps you'd have that chance. But now, he thought, amusement flickering across his face. The helicopter door hissed open, and a line of men in black suits stepped down. Leading them was Yao Xiazi, the chairman of Renhe Pharmaceutical and, unofficially, Ye Wudao's prodigy. Each of the men carried a briefcase. As one of them stepped out, he stumbled and his case flew open. Bundles of brightly colored banknotes spilled across the ground. The villagers stood frozen, mouths open. That box was full of money. If one briefcase held that much, what would 10 look like? Their minds couldn't fathom such sums. Ye Wudao stepped toward Yao Xiazi. Zhou Dianping reached out and grabbed his arm. Where do you think you're going? They're my employees. Yi said simply. They came looking for me. Zhou Dianping laughed incredulously. You? Back in prison, you never boasted like this. Erguzi, you've changed, someone murmured. Zhou Xiaomei rolled her eyes and snapped. Don't spout nonsense. You can't afford to provoke people like this. If we get dragged into anything because of you, I'll never forgive you. The commotion drew Yao Xiazi's attention. The moment he saw Ye Wudao, his face brightened, and he jogged over, flanked by the men in black. The villagers tensed. Who was this big shot, charging in like that? The air around him felt heavy with power. Everyone instinctively shrank back. The most frightened were Zhou Xiaomei's relatives. Yao Xiazi and his crew were heading straight for them. Had Ye Wudao said something earlier that drew this on them? They stopped a meter away and in unison bowed deeply. Hello, boss. The crowd erupted. Zhou Dianping's old prison buddy was literally the boss of these heavy hitters? They'd arrived by helicopter, for God's sake, and the briefcases had been full of cash. How rich could an ex-convict possibly be? The villagers gaped at Zhou Dianping and his family, who stood pale and rooted to the spot. Zhou Xiaomei's stomach twisted with regret. So this was the man she'd brushed off, an ex-con who'd served 5 years alongside her in the same cell. And he was wealthy enough to fly people in by helicopter? She had been so arrogant last night. If only she'd been kinder, if only she'd listened to Zhou Dianping's suggestion to marry him, she pictured riches slipping through her fingers. Zhou Hu couldn't hold a candle to this. She imagined she'd lost out on hundreds of millions. No, billions. Ye Wudao shrugged off Zhou Dianping's grip and moved into the center of the gathered circle. He looked around once, his posture calm but authoritative, and a presence of easy command seemed to radiate from him. Zhou Xiaomei stared, suddenly struck by how handsome and magnetic he was. He pulled a small herb from his pocket and held it up for everyone to see. "You know this, right?" A chorus rose from the crowd. We know it, we know it. "This is rejuvenation grass, the white-faced dandelion. It grows all over in the fields." "We feed it to the pigs," someone called out. Yao Xiazi's expression went cold with disbelief. Rejuvenation grass, when processed into medicine, could save dozens of warriors' lives. It was priceless, far beyond what money could normally buy. And these people were using it as pig fodder? The thought furious him. He wanted to scream at their ignorance, to correct them on the spot. Yi held the herb steady, emotionless. "I need people to cultivate this. At first, the base pay will be 30,000 a month per person. Once you're experienced, it'll go up to 50,000, even 100,000 a month. Who wants the job?" The crowd went wild. A guaranteed minimum salary of 30,000 yuan a month just for planting this white-faced plantain? And once you got skilled, it could rise to 50,000 or even 100,000. That was more money than most bosses made. These villagers had been working themselves to the bone at the chemical plant for at most 4,000 a month. "I'll do it! I'll do it!" they roared. Zhou Xiaomei's family was shaken. Last night, he'd promised to find them jobs that paid tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. They'd laughed at him. Now he wasn't bragging. Yi Wudao nodded. "Good. But there's one condition," he added. "This white-faced plantain needs careful tending and almost round-the-clock attention. You'll have to move into the planting area." "No problem," the villagers chorused. Yi Wudao went on. "Then there's no need for this village to stay where it is. We'll tear it down." Only then did the villagers put two and two together. Qing Cheng's love project, the billion yuan initiative, had some connection to him. He really was rich and powerful. Worries surfaced again, though. Was this some trick to force them to agree to demolition? Yi Wudao saw their hesitation. "If you don't trust me, we can sign the contract right now. I'll even advance you a year's salary. Those who agree, come sign the employment and demolition contracts." The advance settled everything. The villagers surged forward to sign. 30,000 a month meant 300,000 for a year. In less than 3 years, they could be millionaires. Who would turn that down? Ye Wudao forced his way out of the crowd and strode over to Zhou Dianping, who still stood rooted to the spot, stunned. He'd spent 5 years in prison as Ye's cellmate and never imagined Ye would be this wealthy. He handed him a contract that Yao Xiazi had already prepared. "Old Zhou, are you frozen?" he asked. No, Zhou Dianping stammered, trying to collect himself. "Take a look," Ye said. "If you're interested, sign it." "What is it?" Zhou asked. "You'll be in charge of supervising the villagers' work," he replied. "Annual salary, 10 million. Food, lodging, and even finding a wife will be provided." Yao Xiazi blinked. The ever-serious god of war was joking, or at least teasing. Zhou Dianping was even more speechless. 10 million a year was beyond his imagination. It was an amount he couldn't fathom spending even if he lived to 100. "All right, and thanks for the wine last night. I'm off. See you." Yi smiled. "Oh, one more thing. When the villagers demolish their houses, each family will get an extra 10,000 yuan subsidy." He handed over the demolition contract and turned to leave. Zhou Mother and Zhou Xiaomei came forward cautiously. "Dianping," Zhou Mother whispered, "your friend is so rich. Why didn't you tell us?" "He's low-key," Zhou Dianping said flatly. "He doesn't like showing off." Zhou Mother smiled awkwardly. "Low-key's good. I like low-key people." "By the way," Zhou Xiaomei pleaded, "you said you'd introduce your sister to him. Invite him to our house for dinner sometime. I'll cook." Zhou Dianping shook his head. "Forget it. He's a reform-through-labor prisoner. He's not worthy of you. And besides," he added bluntly, "you've got your eyes on Zhou Hu. This fellow isn't even fit to lace Zhou Hu's shoes." Zhou Xiaomei and Zhou Mother both flushed. Xiaomei sighed. "No, it's Zhou Hu who's not worthy even to be laced." Zhou Dianping's tone softened a fraction. "Stop daydreaming. This friend of mine is a dragon among men. He can endure humiliation and hardship. His future will be enormous. We're just not in the same world as him. Hearing that, Zhou Xiaomei felt a fresh wave of disappointment. Chapter 145. Agree to demolition? The commotion drew Zhou over. He'd slept off a heavy night of drinking and was still bleary-eyed, so he didn't know what had happened. Xiaomei, what's going on? Where did that helicopter come from? What are the villagers rushing for? Zhou Xiaomei, still cold from the way Ye Wudao had behaved and unimpressed with Zhou Hu, only shot him a glare and ignored him. Zhou Dianping explained, that helicopter belongs to Renhe Pharmaceutical. They're recruiting workers, 30,000 yuan a month. 30,000? Renhe Pharmaceutical? They're a giant, annual profits in the tens of billions. Zhou Hu's eyes widened. Why would they be recruiting in our little village and paying that much? Dianping, are you kidding me? Zhou Dianping shook his head. I'm serious, but there's a condition to the contract. What condition? Zhou Hu felt a cold knot form in his stomach. You have to agree to demolition. Zhou Dianping said it casually, as if announcing the weather. The words hit Zhou Hu like a blow. Agree to demolition? If this went through, Hu Longquan would kill him, or worse. Panic made him clumsy, and he lunged to stop things, but it was already too late. The villagers were signing the contracts. Damn it, Zhou Hu cursed, grief and fury warring in his voice. Renhe Pharmaceutical involved in demolition? Someone's pulling strings behind the scenes. Zhou Dianping shrugged. To be honest, that friend of mine you despise, the ex-con, has connections at Renhe. He arranged it. Zhou Hu stared. He has ties to Ren? How? If he didn't, this wouldn't have happened, Zhou Dianping finished for him. Zhou Hu ground his teeth. You bastard. Just you wait. I won't let this go. He couldn't keep such a thing to himself and phoned Chen Sanhe at once. As he knew he would, Chen Sanhe exploded when he heard the news, berating Zhou Hu soundly. Zhou Hu swallowed his protest and took the scolding in silence. When Chen Sanhe's voice calmed, Zhou Hu whispered, Mr. Chen, please tell Officer Hu not to worry. Chen Sanhe's tone grew hard. Even if I have to die, I'll take Ye Wudao down. Then he snapped, but don't act rashly without my orders. Zhou Hu hurried on. Did you really say Renhe is offering 30,000 a month for villagers to grow white-faced dandelions? That's what they're recruiting for, Zhou Hu confirmed. Chen Sanhe frowned. They wouldn't do that for no reason, no profit, no incentive. Renhe wouldn't plant a whole crop of white-faced dandelions unless it was valuable. That white-faced dandelion may very well be a precious medicinal herb, possibly one of the 10 great rare and precious herbs. I'll investigate in a couple of days. Until then, do nothing. Zhou breathed out. Understood. After they hung up, Chen Sanhe called his mother, Chen Mei. Mom, come with me to Zhou village. I may have discovered some valuable medicinal herbs. Chen Mei's eyes lit up. As a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, she knew how significant such a find could be. I'll be there, she said without hesitation. Meanwhile, Cheng Xiaoyu had arrived at Shu Linger's house early, ostensibly for a free meal, but mostly to discuss how to handle the demolition crisis. Ye Wudao hadn't returned yet, and Cheng Xiaoyu fretted. Sister, you're heartless. Your brother-in-law went to Zhou village and didn't come back all night. Aren't you worried he might be in danger? Shu Linger waved off her concern. I called him last night. He left Zhou village a long time ago and went drinking at a friend's place. Don't worry. Cheng Xiaoyu relaxed, but was curious. A friend close enough to drink with the god of war had to be powerful. She wondered who he was. So how are you going to deal with the demolition? She pressed. Shu Linger sighed. If push comes to shove, we can only raise the demolition compensation. Cheng Xiaoyu shook her head. It won't help. I doubled the compensation yesterday, but they still refused. You doubled it and they still refused? This is worse than I thought. Shu Linger's head ached at the prospect. What else can we do? They were mid-conversation when someone knocked at the door. Shu Linger opened it to find Ye Wudao, late but steady, carrying a thick stack of papers. The smell of alcohol clung to him. Where have you been? She chided. He gave an easy smile. I went to handle the demolition matter last night. You went drinking and say you were working, Shu Linger said, noting the alcohol. I did both. He set the documents down. As for Zhou Village's demolition, I've decided to play the long game, a war of attrition. What do you think? You're 10,000 times more thoughtful than him. Li Yuan's voice trailed off into a laugh as the family room filled with a rare, bright energy. Ye Wudao shook his head. I don't think this is very good. Why not? Schulinger asked. Because Zhou Village has already been demolished, Ye Wudao said. Schulinger frowned. You're joking. Xiao Yuer, Cheng Xiaoyu, spent all day yesterday talking to them and got nowhere. You, who went out drinking last night, settled it overnight? She added incredulously. Ye Wudao handed her a thick stack of papers. Look for yourself. Schulinger took the documents carefully. One glance, and she gasped. Oh my God. They were demolition agreements, an enormous pile, all signed. She counted them quickly, 302 contracts. In other words, every household in Zhou Village except one had signed. The lone holdout was Zhou Hu, but that didn't seem to matter anymore. You're amazing. Schulinger's hands trembled as she clutched the contracts. Tears of relief pricked at her eyes. How did you manage it? Yesterday, Xiao Yuer negotiated all day, and not a single person signed, she said, incredulous. And you? I appealed to their feelings and reasoned with them, Ye Wudao replied simply. Schulinger rolled her eyes. You're lying. Cheng Xiaoyu hurried to his defense. Sister, stop making stuff up. The most important thing now is to contact the demolition crew and start the work, Schulinger said, already reaching for her phone. Xiao Yuer, Cheng Xiaoyu, wasn't surprised. With Ye Wudao, nicknamed half-jokingly the God of War, on the case, was there ever a problem that couldn't be solved? Schulinger slapped her forehead. Right. We should contact the team before anyone changes their mind. Ye Wudao lifted a hand. You don't need to call them. Why? She asked, puzzled. Because the villagers of Zhou Village have already torn their own houses down. What? Schulinger's face went blank. They demolished their own houses? At that exact moment, her phone rang. It was her assistant, Xiao Liu. When the call connected, his voice was all panic. Miss Xu, something's happening. Something big. What's wrong? Schulinger demanded. They're demolishing their houses now, and they haven't even moved out their furniture. I think they're trying to set up a false accusation of forced demolition. I've already sent people to record it and preserve evidence. Ye Wudao looked at her, then inhaled and relaxed. Why are you getting so worked up? It's a small demolition. One more phone call, and it's sorted. Cheng Xiaoyu and Schulinger stared. That level of calm was unnerving. After she hung up, Schulinger grabbed Cheng Xiaoyu's hand and bolted for the door. If the demolition's done, the project can finally start, she said over her shoulder. Ye Wudao, stay home and be good. I'll make you something delicious tonight. Ye Wudao watched her go. His parents, Xu Dahai and Li Yuhuan, were smiling like they hadn't seen in a long time, and the house felt lighter for it. He turned to his father. Dad, over the next few days, recruit more people for the clinic. I want to expand. How many do you need? Xu Dahai asked. The more, the better, Ye Wudao answered. Xu Dahai blinked. It was only a small clinic, surely 5 or 6 people at most. He didn't know that Ye Wudao had plans that reached far beyond a typical medical practice. There was a whole field of medicinal knowledge, a treasure trove that, once tapped even in part, could secure the family's prosperity for generations. Li Yuan, still smiling, reminded him, Xiao Ye, tomorrow is Linger's 23rd birthday. According to our customs, the 23rd is a big celebration. Relatives and friends will come. You should book a hotel. Ye Wudao nodded. Don't worry, I'll call and make arrangements now. Good. Li Yuan beamed. Xu Dahai slapped his forehead. Oh, I forgot to tell Xiao Ye to prepare a gift for Linger. Get out of here, Li Yuan scolded lightly. Xiao Ye is 10,000 times more thoughtful and considerate than you. If there's something to remember, he's already thought of it. Xu Dahai laughed embarrassedly. You're right. I was overthinking it. Chapter 147, Crystal Palace Hotel. After leaving home, Ye Wudao went straight to the Crystal Palace Hotel to see its current owner, Ren Susu. The Crystal Palace was the most prestigious hotel in Linhai City. He planned to hold Xu Linger's 23rd birthday banquet there. After he explained his intentions, Ren Susu nodded. No problem. Consider the birthday banquet handled. Then, abruptly, she added, Oh, Mr. Ye, I'm planning to sell this hotel. Ye Wudao's face stayed calm. What will you do after you transfer it? Ren Susu shrugged. I specialize in medicine. Running a hotel isn't my forte. I'm going to sell my shares and put the money into the pharmaceutical industry. She leaned forward, eyes bright. Since George published his apology in the international journals, traditional Chinese medicine has been booming again. This is a prime moment. If you seize it, you could do anything. Yewu Dao had to admit Boss Ren had a sharp business mind. George's apology had indeed caused an uproar, and the new discoveries could push TCM even further. He suggested, don't transfer your family's shares to outsiders. Let the Shen family buy them back. Within the Crystal Palace hotel chain, the Shen family held 70% of the dry shares. Ren Susu's family held the other 30%, including the management shares. If those 30% were bought back, the hotel's ownership structure would change in Yewu Dao's favor, effectively giving him full control. Ren Susu brightened immediately. Great. I've already drafted the contract. Mr. Ye, please sign. Yewu Dao picked up the pen and paused. Instead of signing his own name, he wrote Shu Linger. He intended to give Ren Susu's 30% to Shu Linger as a 23rd birthday present. He would have liked to give her even more, but he feared she might refuse such a grand gesture. When Ren Susu saw the name Shu Linger on the contract, a flash of jealousy crossed her face. Fate could be cruel. She had finally met the kind of man she liked, and someone else had beaten her to him. She forced a smile. My family still has 1% held by managers of some other branches. I'll notify them to come and sign. Then she added, as an afterthought, Mr. Ye, sit in my office for a while. Yewu Dao opened his mouth to agree, looked at Ren Susu, and then shook his head. No need. I'll wait outside. Her expression flickered with a look he didn't want to get close to. Better to keep distance. A young man has to protect himself when he's out. Watching him walk away, Ren Susu felt hollow and ached. She realized she was falling deeper for Yewu Dao and couldn't pull herself free. Even her decision to enter the pharmaceutical field had something to do with him. His family had connections to medicine too. She clenched her fist. Humph. If happiness is taken, you have to fight for it. I'll work hard and surpass Shu Linger. Just wait, Xiao Ye. One day you'll kneel and sing Conquer. She let herself drift into daydreams. Outside the hotel, Yewu Dao pulled out a cigarette and lit it. There was a certain illicit thrill to smoking behind someone's back. He had just taken a drag when an Audi A6 pulled up abruptly and stopped in front of him. The door swung open, and a sharply dressed woman in trendy clothes, sunglasses, and heels stepped out. She flicked the car keys toward Yewu Dao with a casual, impatient toss. Park this for me. She had mistaken him for a valet. Yewu Dao let the keys drop to the ground without moving. The woman snapped. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear me? I'm not a valet, he said flatly. She froze at his voice, then frowned and peered at him a moment longer. Her expression changed. She pulled off her sunglasses and stared. You're Yewu Dao. Yewu Dao narrowed his eyes. He looked at her, puzzled. He didn't recognize her face. Who are you? The woman's jaw tightened. She took a step closer, anger and disbelief mingling in her voice. What, 5 years in prison, and you don't even recognize me anymore? 148. Acquisition of Crystal Palace. Yewu Dao took a closer look and recognition hit him. The woman in front of him was an old classmate, Fan Yun. They had a history. In high school, Fan Yun had been the campus beauty. Her admirers could have formed a whole company. She was proud and snobbish, only socializing with wealthy second-generation heirs and barely tolerating anyone from a poor background. Once, someone had mailed her a love letter using Yewu Dao's name. Furious, she had read it out loud in front of the entire school and publicly vowed she would beat him every time she saw him. The humiliation had cut deep. Yi had come from an ostracized branch of his family and often went hungry. To Fan Yun, the idea that someone like him could write her a love letter was an insult. After he went to prison, she spread the story wide among their classmates. He had never expected to run into her years later. Now she was dressed head to toe in designer labels and looked prosperous. Yewu Dao said, neutral, you're Fan Yun, right? Fan Yun chuckled coolly. So prison didn't make you forget everything. Glad you remember me. He frowned. Her arrogance hadn't changed, still the same delight in belittling others. She added, move your car properly. Do it right and you'll get a good tip. I don't park cars, Yewu Dao said. If you don't park cars, what are you doing here? Just freeloading. And you, what are you doing here? Fan Yun's smile widened. I'm the manager of the Crystal Palace branch. I even own 1% of the Crystal Palace hotel chain. A boss is here to buy my shares, and I'm just here to sign the contract, Ye said flatly. she snorted. Honestly, the one buying Crystal Palace is my boyfriend. Ye Wudao fell silent. She had no bottom, bragging about a boyfriend as if he were the one doing the buying. He didn't want to waste time, so he cut straight to it. Let's go sign the contract. What? Fan Yun blinked. What did you say? You want to sign a contract with me? Ye nodded. Yes, I'm the one acquiring your shares. Her laugh was loud and incredulous, her posture designed to show off everything she had. Ye Wudao, when did you learn to talk like that? You, buying my shares. If you could just support yourself, that would be something. My 1% is worth tens of millions, she said, rolling her eyes. Can a little security guard like you even scrape together 10,000 yuan? Ye Wudao shrugged. You were the one who started bragging. That set her off. Who are you calling a braggart, you little security guard? You said your boyfriend is buying Crystal Palace. Isn't that bragging? No, I'm telling the truth. My boyfriend is buying Crystal Palace. At that moment, several cars pulled up. 7 well-dressed women stepped out and hurried toward Fan Yun. Fan Yun, you're here early, one exclaimed. Why are you standing at the entrance? Come on, let's go sign the contract. I can't wait to see which boss is buying Crystal Palace. I'm calling dibs now. If that big boss is under 50, he's mine. Don't try to steal him from me. The 7 people standing there were all managers of Crystal Palace branches. Together with Fan Yun, they held 1% of the company's shares. Ye Wudao suddenly noticed a familiar couple among them. A closer look made him sure it was his high school classmates, Zhu Daqiang and Xia Meng. He had always liked Xia Meng. In school, she'd often helped him, lending pencils and erasers, insisting he eat with her and ordering extra dishes because she worried he didn't eat enough. Fan Yun caught sight of them and couldn't hide a mischievous smile. Zhu Daqiang, Xia Meng, look who I ran into. Our old classmate, Ye Wudao, Zhu Daqiang chimed. Both Zhu and Xia looked surprised to see him. Zhu couldn't resist teasing. Ye Wudao, I heard you went to jail after graduation. Didn't expect you'd be out already. Ye Wudao's face stayed unreadable. He didn't answer. Zhu and Fan Yun had been thick as thieves since school. Their teasing came in pairs. Xia Meng hurried to smooth things over. Come on, old classmates meeting. Let's not bring up unpleasant things. Do you work at this hotel, Ye Wudao? She asked. He nodded. Fan Yun snorted. Humph. I asked him earlier if he was a security guard and he wouldn't admit it. And now his lie's been exposed. Isn't that embarrassing? Zhu added with a grin. Fan Yun, don't be like that, Xia Meng scolded, but Zhu kept prodding. We're classmates. Seeing one of us doing so well and him only being a small-time security guard, how could he own up to that? Besides, didn't he used to have a thing for you? Wouldn't that hurt his pride? Shut up. Don't ever bring that up again. It's a lifelong disgrace for me, Fan Yun snapped. Forget it, Zhu said, waving it off. Let's hurry and sign the transfer contract. Don't make my boyfriend wait. Your boyfriend? Zhu looked puzzled for a moment. Then Fan Yun gave him a wink. Yes, actually, the one buying our shares today is my boyfriend. As the idea registered, Zhu's teasing smoothed into mock deference. Right, of course. How could I forget? Ye Wudao, Zhu said with exaggerated sympathy. Fan Yun's boyfriend is worth tens of millions. You'd better give up on her, little security guard. Fan Yun and Zhu walked away together, chuckling. Xia Meng lingered behind to speak to Ye with a softer expression. Don't mind them, Ye Wudao. You know how they are, sharp tongues but not mean-spirited. Ye Wudao managed a small smile. I know. It really is a waste for you to be standing around as a security guard, she said genuinely. If you've got time some other day, I'll introduce you to a good job. Before he could answer, Zhu's voice called from the door. Xia Meng, hurry up and go. What are you dawdling for? If we delay the transfer because of you, I'll get mad. Xia Meng flushed. I'll go sign the contract first. He surprised her by stepping forward. Why don't you stay here for now? I'll take you out to dinner later. Xia Meng started. Go in where? To the conference room. To sign the contract, Ye said. She was speechless for a beat, then looked at him with a private, exasperated smile. He was still so vain and competitive. Of all the things, he'd volunteered to sign a contract just to be part of the ceremony. Didn't he worry about being found out earlier? He pulled out his phone as they moved toward the entrance and called Ren Susu. Everyone's here. Come down and sign the contract. Okay, Ren Susu replied. Fan Yun's boyfriend. Xiaomeng stared at him, baffled. Who are you on the phone with? Ye Wudao didn't look up. Ren Susu. Ren Susu? Xiaomeng half laughed, half crying. You mean Boss Ren, my boss? She is. Xiaomeng wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. This man's nerve was remarkable. No sooner had Ye Wudao stepped into the conference room than Zhu Daqiang and Fan Yun erupted at him. Who let you in? Zhu barked. Get out now. If you delay our contract signing, you'll be responsible. Ye Wudao ignored them and dropped into the chair at the head of the table as if he owned the place. That only made Zhu Daqiang angrier. Are you deaf, you bastard? I told you to get out, he shouted. If you don't leave this instant, don't blame me for being rude. Ye Wudao snorted. Really? Go ahead, be rude. Zhu Daqiang fumed, rolling up his sleeves and storming toward him. Fan Yun, furious, grabbed a stool and hurled it. Stop! Everyone calm down, Xiaomeng cried, lunging forward. Ye Wudao, come with me. Let's get you out of here. Yi planted himself in place and put a hand on Xiaomeng's shoulder. Don't move. The stool sailed through the air. With a casual motion, Ye Wudao caught it one-handed. Zhu charged, swinging, but Ye was faster. He slammed the stool down on Zhu's head. The wooden frame shattered with a sickening crack. Blood spattered, and Zhu collapsed, clutching his skull and screaming. You hit me! You dared to hit me! He howled. I'll kill you! Xiaomeng stood frozen. She hadn't expected Ye to actually strike him. Was he out of his mind? Everyone knew Zhu Daqiang had ties to the underworld. Panic seized her. Ye Wudao, run! Hide somewhere! She hissed. Zhu Daqiang will come after you. He knows people in the underworld. Ye Wudao only sneered. He knows people in the underworld? Then I definitely can't leave. Before Xiaomeng could pull him away, Ren Susu appeared in the doorway. The scene that met her left her momentarily stunned. The room was in chaos, Zhu bleeding on the floor, papers scattered, people shouting. What on earth had happened? Zhu Daqiang spotted her and instantly lit up. Boss Ren, quickly, get someone to control this convict. Convict? Ren Susu's head spun. Zhu had actually called Ye a convict. The man in front of her had a run-in with Mr. Ye? Her calm faltered. Fan Yun seized the chance. Boss Ren, call security. This guy barged into our meeting and attacked us. We need him taught a lesson. Ren Susu swallowed the sudden fear and forced her voice steady. What exactly is going on here? Fan Yun spoke fast, playing up the story. This security guard forced his way into the conference room. We tried to remove him, but he wouldn't listen, and then attacked us. To be frank, the person trying to buy our shares today is my boyfriend. If you uphold justice for us, the acquisition price can be negotiated. She didn't care if the boyfriend claim was true or not. Her priority was to have Ye taught a lesson. The rest could be sorted later. Ren Susu was dumbstruck. The person attempting to buy their shares was Ye Wudao? Ye Wudao was Fan Yun's boyfriend? Using her boyfriend's influence to, stage this to get revenge. The whole situation suddenly made less and less sense. Xiaomeng, watching Ren Susu stride toward Ye Wudao, had assumed Ren was about to berate him. She hurriedly began. Boss Ren, this is all a misunderstanding. But the words died on her lips. Instead of shouting, Ren Susu bowed deeply to Ye Wudao and said with surprising deference, Mr. Ye, I'm terribly sorry for startling you. Please be assured I will look into this carefully and make sure you are treated fairly. Everyone in the room froze. The CEO of the Crystal Palace Hotel, Ren Susu, had just bowed to Ye Wudao, an ex-convict, and she'd spoken with such respectful formality. It was bewildering. What on earth gave this man so much clout? Ye Wudao sat back down as if nothing odd had happened and asked, Do you have the transfer agreement? Ren Susu hurriedly produced the papers. Have them sign it, Ye said. Ren set the agreement on the table and urged, Why are you still standing there? Sign the agreement quickly. A cold silence fell over Zhu Daqiang and Fan Yun, as if they'd been dropped into an ice cellar. How could Ye be the one to demand they sign? A terrifying realization crept into their minds. Zhu Daqiang's voice wavered. Boss Ren, this Ye Wudao is. He's Mr. Ye, the buyer who's taking 30% of your shares, Ren Susu cut in. 30%? The few of them nearly leapt out of their seats. The man they'd thought of as a downtrodden former student and ex-convict was suddenly 30% owner of the hotel chain, far above them now. They were humiliated. Fan Yun's face burned. She just bragged that the buyer was her boyfriend. The whole thing was mortifying. Under Ren Susu's insistence, and still shaking inside, They signed the agreement. Ren collected the documents and handed them to Ye. "Mr. Ye, what would you like to do about these people?" she asked. Ye's voice was cold. "Fire Zhu Daqiang and Fan Yun. The others can keep their jobs if they want." Zhu Daqiang bristled. On what grounds can you fire us?" "Nonsense," Ren said flatly. "You bullied Mr. Ye. Getting fired is the lightest punishment." Zhu Daqiang wiped blood from his brow and pointed at Ye. "We didn't bully him. Boss Ren, look, he's the one who hit us." Ren faltered. Indeed, Ye looked uninjured while Zhu looked battered. Ye remained perfectly composed. "You caused me psychological trauma," he said icily. Psychological trauma? The accusation sounded absurd. How could they have caused any such thing? Zhu, desperate to keep his steady job, tried a different tack. Even if he bought shares, he only owns 30%. The Shen family controls 70% of the chain. They have the final say on personnel decisions. If anyone's to be fired, it's up to them. He leaned in, trying to sound intimidating. "I have a department manager at the Shen family who owes me a favor. If you fire us, you'd be going up against the Shen family. I don't advise you to do that." Yi's expression didn't change. "Oh? Which department manager do you know in the Shen family?" Relief flooded Zhu. He thought he'd rattled Ye. "Manager Li Kongwen," he said. Ye smiled faintly. "Li Kongwen, very good." Then he took out his phone and dialed. Zhu Daqiang and Fan Yun stared. "Who are you calling?" Fan whispered. "Shen Fengchun," Ye answered. They both laughed, half disbelief, half nervousness. Shen Fengchun, the head of the Shen family and the richest man in Linhai? Ye must be joking. If he really knew Shen Fengchun, his social standing would be so high he wouldn't need to come in person to buy 30% of a hotel chain. They had no idea what was coming next. 152. Order Shen Fengchun? The phone rang once, and Shen Fengchun answered immediately, his voice thick with flattery and respect. "Mr. Ye, you called for me." Ye Wudao's tone was flat and commanding. "Fire Zhu Daqiang and Fan Yun, the two branch managers of the Crystal Palace Hotel." "No problem. I'll give the order right away," Shen said. "And there's a Li Kongwen on your payroll too, isn't there? Fire him as well." "Understood, Mr. Ye. Tell Li Kongwen he's being sacked because of Zhu Daqiang and Fan Yun, so he won't die with any grudges." "Understood, Mr. Ye." The call ended. Silence fell like a concrete slab. Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang stared at one another in disbelief. Was that really Shen Fengchun on the line? Had Ye Wudao spoken to him in such an imperious tone? And Shen, the richest man in Linhai, had he really been so obsequious, not daring to argue, not even asking a single question? It seemed impossible. Just then, Zhu Daqiang's phone rang. Li Kongwen was calling. A cold premonition hit Zhu. His hands trembled as he answered. "Manager Li, you called." On the other end, Li Kongwen's voice exploded. "Zhu Daqiang, I curse your ancestors for 18 generations. What god did you piss off to get me fired?" The phone clattered from Zhu Daqiang's hand. His eyes went wide. Li Kongwen had really been fired. Ye Wudao could really order Shen Fengchun around. How high had Ye Wudao climbed? Higher than the richest man in Linhai. Ren Susu spoke up, almost matter-of-factly. "To be honest, Shen Fengchun is nothing more than Mr. Ye's puppet. This chain of hotels is actually wholly owned by Mr. Ye." Puppet, wholly owned. The words hammered into Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang's minds. Regret and humiliation washed over them. The man they'd once scorned now stood above them like a god. Beside him, they felt no better than cockroaches. And just minutes ago, they'd been strutting around, showing off their minor achievements. The shame was suffocating. Ye Wudao smiled faintly at Xiameng, who was still in shock. "Xiameng, Ren Susu is no longer the hotel's general manager," he said. "Interested in the job? I'll give you 1% of the shares." Xiameng stared as if she'd been struck. Hotel general manager, and 1% of the shares? Before, 6 or 7 branch managers had split that same 1% between them. Now Xiameng alone was being handed it. In an instant, she went from a regular employee to a multimillionaire. She could barely bring herself to speak, but she nodded. "Of course I'll do it, Mr. Ye. Thank you." "Call it helping me out," Ye said lightly. How could she refuse? It wasn't just help, he was elevating her to the heavens. Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang watched with burning, envious eyes. If only they'd been kinder to Ye Wudao before, then they wouldn't be fired, and maybe they would have received that 1% themselves. The realization made their faces go pale with jealousy and hatred. A sudden commotion broke the trance. Curses and a man's coarse voice carried through the lobby. Damn you, bitch. Don't act like I'm not doing you a favor. What's wrong with me touching you? Rensusu slapped her forehead and remembered. Oh no, how could I forget them? Mr. Ye, please wait here a moment, she said hurriedly. There's a situation outside I need to deal with. Yewudao nodded. Rensusu rushed off. He turned back to Xiameng with a smile. You said you'd invite me to dinner earlier. Is that still on? Of course it is, Xiameng said quickly. You can eat your fill tonight. Never mind the formality. Just call me Yewudao, he said. They stepped out together, chatting and laughing as they walked. Fan Yun gritted her teeth like she was making a monumental decision and called out, Yewudao, stop! He glanced back. What is it? Her eyes were rimmed red. Yewudao, you wrote me love letters in high school. I know you've always had a thing for me. Let's make a deal. If you let me keep my job as store manager, I'll be yours tonight. She thrust her chest forward, cleavage on display. Yewudao frowned. People these days were too impulsive. They'd throw decency aside for personal gain. He took a cigarette from his pack, dropped it on the floor, and crushed it under his foot. Tell me, can this still be smoked? Fan Yun blinked. No. Why not? Because it's dirty, she said casually. He gave her a long, loaded look and turned away. Only then did she realize what he meant, that she herself had become like the ruined cigarette. Her face burned. As they stepped out of the private room, Xiameng leaned in, whispering, Yewudao, aren't you going a bit far? We were classmates, Yewudao said. They only insulted her a few times, and now you're worried I'm ruining their futures? Xiameng pursed her lips. Is that what you call it? I'm not trying to ruin them, he replied. I'm trying to teach them a lesson. If people like them aren't checked now, they'll only get bolder. Someday they'll pick a fight with someone far more dangerous than they are. Then what they'll lose won't be a job, it could be their lives. Xiameng had to concede, smiling wryly. All right, your logic wins. She changed the subject. By the way, we're having a class reunion in a few days. Are you going? Yewudao shook his head. He wasn't in the mood for socializing. Xiameng looked disappointed. Think about it. Haozi will be there. The name made him pause. Haozi had been his closest friend in high school, someone who stood by him through everything. If not for Haozi, Yewudao might have dropped out. How is he doing? He asked. Xiameng's face fell. I heard not well. He lost a leg. Yewudao felt a sharp sting in his chest. Call me when the reunion date is set. I'll come see him. Deal, Xiameng said brightly. Before they reached the next private room, screams erupted from room 101. Xiameng frowned. Sounds like trouble. Want to check it out? Yewudao rubbed his temples. He couldn't even get through a meal in peace. Let's go. They pushed toward the private room entrance, but a crowd of guests and staff blocked the way. People were whispering. Listening, Yewudao quickly pieced together what had happened. Rensusu had been trying to host people from Renhei Pharmaceutical, a major player in the industry, hoping to build a good relationship. During the meal, a corpulent man from the Renhei delegation deliberately groped a waitress. When she burst into tears and asked for an apology, he refused and slapped her. Rensusu stepped in to defend her, and the man hit Rensusu too. Cold light flickered in Yewudao's eyes. Renhei Pharmaceutical had grown fast in recent years. Where big money went, parasites followed. Perfect. Today he would use this chance to wipe out the rot. Rensusu, listen carefully, the fat man sneered. Either that waitress kneels and licks my shoes while apologizing right here, or you spend the night with me. And if you refuse, one word from me and you won't survive in the military pharmaceutical industry. Rensusu felt her fingernails bite into her palm. She knew how deep Renhei Pharmaceutical's reach ran. If they wanted to bury her career, they could do it. But the choices in front of her were obscene. She could not force a woman to humiliate herself, and she could not spend a night with this man. Either option would haunt her forever. She swallowed and forced out a compromise. All right, let's be reasonable. I'll apologize on behalf of my employee, and I'll compensate you. She produced a check and wrote down a sum in neat, deliberate strokes. 10 million, she said. The fat man laughed, disdain writ large on his face. You think money fixes everything? Do I need your 10 million? Decide now. Either you come with me or she licks my shoes. Unless you prefer that, haha. The waitress, young, pale, trembling, couldn't stand to watch. Tears filled her eyes. Boss Ren, you've always treated me well. I won't drag you down because of me. She began to sink to her knees. Get up! Ren Susu grabbed her before she hit the floor. Don't you dare kneel. Fatty, she begged, looking straight at him. Must you really be this ruthless? He only smirked. Ruthless? Sure. What are you going to do about it? Ren Susu's voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. Fine. If you must, then I'll leave the pharmaceutical industry. I'll quit. Wouldn't that be enough? The fat man's smile turned contemptuous. Kicking you out of the medical business? Child's play. He leaned in. I'll make sure you can't work anywhere in Hexi Province. Those words felt like ice in her veins. Hexi Province was everything to her. Every contact, every client, every resource. Outside it, she was almost nothing. He wasn't just humiliating her. He was promising to shove her off a cliff with no way back. He threw his head back and laughed, then started to walk off. I'll give you one night to think it over. As the doorway swallowed his bulk, a voice cut through the murmur of the room. Stop. Did I tell you to leave? Heads turned. All at once, the crowded banquet hall seemed to hush and compress around the speaker. The voice belonged to an unremarkable young man in plain clothes, slightly shabby, not at all the kind of person who usually commanded attention. Everyone blinked at him, as if they had been slapped. Ren Susu felt something like hope flare in her chest. Ye Wudao, who had always been distant and indifferent to her, was actually stepping in. For the first time since they'd met, he might be on her side. She felt a swell of relief, almost giddy, before reality punched cold air into her face. Yi's influence might be real in Linhai City, but Renhei Pharmaceuticals' reach was national, even international. Could a lone young man stand up to a man with that kind of power? She mouthed quietly, Mr. Ye, please don't get involved. He's not someone to provoke. Ye Wudao's voice was crisp and detached. Thank you for helping me remove a few bad apples. The edge in his tone made Ren Susu frown. Was he thanking them or warning them? The fat man, sizing Yi up with a sneer, noticed his plain clothes and immediately dismissed him. Who the hell are you? What gives you the right to speak? Yi didn't answer. He pulled out his phone and, without changing expression, dialed. Yao Xiazi, he said, get your ass to the Crystal Palace Hotel. The name hit the room like a thunderclap. Yao Xiazi, the famous doctor of Yanxia, the chairman of Renhei Pharmaceutical, was not the type of man anyone spoke lightly about. And this unassuming young man had just called him by his full name and told him to come immediately. The audacity felt obscene. Whispers ran through the crowd. Who was this kid? How could he possibly summon the chairman like that? For a moment, the fat man's swagger faltered, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The room had shifted. Whatever little order there had been hinged now on a single, impossible phone call. Chapter 155. Risk your life to accompany the gentleman. Ren Susu's eyes burned with excitement. In her mind, Ye Wudao never acted on a whim. If he had the nerve to call Yao Xiazi by name, then could it be that he really meant it? She couldn't help but replay in her head the earlier moment when he'd called Shen Fengchun that way. Maybe it would happen again. The fat man's face went red with fury. You dare call our boss by his name? Do you want to die? Ye Wudao's voice was cold. Lick your shoes clean, now. You've got to be kidding me, the fat man snapped. Who the hell are you talking to? Without warning, Ye Wudao moved. He gripped the fat man by the shoulder, exerted a little force, and the next instant the nearly 300-pound man was lifted as if he were weightless. Everyone gaped as Ye Wudao deposited him into a nearby trash can like a sack of garbage. The bin threatened to burst under the weight. The fat man folded over into a V, hips jutting up, head and feet level, perfectly positioned for the humiliation. It was like a scene straight out of a kung fu movie, the kind where the second in command gets tossed into a trash can. The crowd exploded. Is he crazy? This youngster must be out of his mind. To insult someone from Renhei Pharmaceutical like that, if Yao Xiazi found out, he'd be dead. The fat man's men broke into a cold sweat and rushed to pull him free, but the man inside cursed and screamed, foaming at the mouth. Don't move. I think my waist is broken, he wailed. Call the boss. They scrambled for their phones. Boss, something happened. Fat brother's been beaten, one of them blurted out. Okay. We'll wait for you at Crystal Palace, came the laconic reply. The men hung up, and pointed threateningly at Ye Wudao. Kid, you're dead. Our boss has 10 bodyguards, all ex-special forces. Just wait and see. Ye Wudao sneered. We'll see who dies. He turned his gaze back to the fat man. But first, you're gonna lick those shoes. Arrogant, the fat man roared. You won't cry until you see your coffin. Ye Wudao pressed the man's head down with one hand, forcing him deeper into the trash can. A squeal, half piglet, half man, escaped. Stop! It hurts! Ah! The entourage froze. Who could face a man who could hoist a 300-pound body like that? None of them wanted to be next. Lick the shoes, or it won't just be your waist that breaks, Ye Wudao warned. I'll lick, the fat man stammered, terror in his eyes. He stuck out his tongue and laboriously licked his shoes. The scene was absurd. People snickered despite themselves. He was probably the first grown man in history forced to lick his own shoes. Ren Susu's smile faded. The bolder Ye Wudao was, the more she feared the fall that might follow. Yi, boss, she said cautiously, maybe you should leave now. Let us handle this. You can't leave, Ye Wudao replied simply. I still have a little gift I want to give you later. Ren Susu's heart leapt. Her beloved was going to give her a gift, more thrilling than landing the Renhei pharmaceutical contract. She would gladly give her life for such a gentleman. Still, she wished he'd shown a fraction more warmth. Why so cold? Nearby, Ye Wudao's old classmates Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang had been drawn by the commotion. After hearing what had happened, both of them were thoroughly entertained. The fat man provoked the handsome man, someone muttered, and the whisper spread like wildfire. Everyone leaned forward, eager for the spectacle. They were certain Ye Wudao had just courted death by offending Renhei Pharmaceutical. Even if he had connections with Shen Fengchun, who cared? Shen Fengchun would still have to kowtow to a corporation like Renhei. People settled to the side like spectators waiting for a fight. 2 luxury cars pulled up to the hotel entrance. The doors opened and a line of men in black suits stepped out. At their head was Yao Xiazi, the formidable boss of Renhei Pharmaceutical. The others, 10 broad-shouldered, hard-faced bodyguards, moved like a single, intimidating unit. They radiated the kind of presence that makes crowds part without thinking. Even the bravest of onlookers broke out in a cold sweat for Ye. Fatty's panic snapped him out of his daze. He saw Yao Xiazi and cried out, "Boss, save me! Save me!" Yao Xiazi's gaze swung over. He froze at the sight of Fatty, lodged miserably in the trash can. The image struck a chord in him, a memory 3 years old, when an elite enemy commander had been captured. A legendary warrior, dubbed the God of War, had fought him for 2 days and nights and finally taken him alive. The prisoner's will had been ironclad. Even after the Ministry of Punishment used every torture, he refused to speak. In the end, the God of War had shoved him into a trash can, and to keep him alive, fed him high-calorie liquid through the can's lid. His bodily needs were managed in that same can. In 3 days, the prisoner had been broken by humiliation and filth, and had confessed everything. The tale had become legend among soldiers. Only the God of War could carry out something so ruthless and effective. Could it be Fatty had crossed the God of War? The realization sent a jolt through Yao Xiazi. He ran forward. "Fatty, what happened?" he demanded. Fatty turned his head with difficulty, his voice thin. He pointed at Ye Wudao. "It's him. He did it." "Boss, you have to do something for me," Fatty pleaded. Yao Xiazi followed his line of sight. Seeing Ye Wudao in person made his head swim. He didn't hesitate. He and the 10 men behind him dropped to their knees in unison. For a moment, no one moved. Ren Susu assumed Yao Xiazi had come to punish Ye and stepped forward to block him. Yi waved her off. "Don't worry," he said calmly. Ren Susu started to explain. "Mr. Yao, this isn't Mr. Yi's fault," but the sentence died on her lips. Yao Xiazi was already on his knees, and the 10 bodyguards had gone down with him. The man standing there before them wasn't just any bruiser. He was a living legend to these soldiers, their hero. To them, dropping to their knees was the most natural thing in the world. If it came to it, they would offer their lives. "Sir," Yao Xiazi said, voice trembling with reverence, "this is my failure in supervising my men. I humbly apologize." "Please rest assured, I will make this right," he added, eyes fixed on Ye. A stunned hush fell over the crowd. Mouths hung open, some wide enough to fit an egg. Boss? That young, shabby-looking man was Yao Xiazi's superior? The realization spread like a cold wave. Fatty hadn't just offended some corporate bigwig, he'd picked a fight with the boss's boss. No wonder everyone had been so scared. They had been watching a small diner argue with a true titan and had had no idea. Even Fatty, half splattered with refuse, was too confused to form coherent thought. "Boss, what's going on?" he stammered. Yaoshiazi's shock turned into fury in an instant. He glowered at Fatty as if the man had committed sacrilege. "You damned fool," he spat, stamping a foot. "Of all people to provoke, you had to pick the god of war? Who do you think you are, daring to insult him? And you dragged my men into this." He kicked the trash can, sending a clatter that echoed through the square. "You blind idiot, can't you see what's in front of you? Do you know who Mr. Ye is?" "You wait until we get back," he hissed. "There'll be an investigation." The trash can with Zhu Daqiang inside toppled over, metal clanging as his screams rang out. Yaoshiazi ran back and dropped to her knees. Ye Wudao's voice cut through the noise. "Thoroughly investigate Zhu Daqiang's network inside Renhei Pharmaceutical. Pursue it to the end. It's better to kill 100 by mistake than to let a single one go," he added harshly. Renhei Pharmaceutical exists to protect the health of the people of Yanxia. It's a pillar of the nation. How can such a pillar be allowed to be defiled by these pests? Yaoshiazi bowed her head and nodded. Understood. The executives who had been with Zhu Daqiang looked devastated. They knew they were finished. Their jobs were gone for sure, and they might even face legal consequences. Ye Wudao turned to Ren Susu. "Ren Susu, you've done a great service in helping Renhei Pharmaceutical root out the rotten elements. We won't treat you unfairly." "Yaoshiazi, pick a few projects and have them collaborate with Ren Susu," he instructed. Yaoshiazi saluted again. Ren Susu could hardly contain herself. Tears glimmered in her eyes. Was this the small gift Mr. Ye mentioned? This was anything but small. Even one project with Renhei Pharmaceutical could change her life. Several projects would launch her beyond anything she dared hope. Mr. Ye was truly her benefactor. Ye Wudao continued, matter of fact. "Ren Susu, you're still at square one in the traditional medicine field, and you don't have capital. I suggest you cooperate with my father-in-law, use his clinic as a base, and grow from there." Ren Susu agreed at once. Working with Ye Wudao's father-in-law would get her closer to him too, a twofold gain. When the business was settled, Ye Wudao smiled at Xiameng. "Come on, old classmate. Let's go eat. I'm starving." He walked away as calm as if he'd only brushed aside an insect. Xiameng, still in shock, could hardly believe what had just happened. The scene felt unreal, like a dream. The power he displayed rewrote everything she thought she knew. The poor classmate she'd known in Linhai City was now someone whose influence reached beyond the city to Beidou and even nationwide. He'd become an existence she could only dream of catching up to. For a moment, she didn't know how to behave. "Let's go," Ye Wudao urged again, and she followed him in a daze. Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang watched with even more complicated emotions. As Ye Wudao walked away, Fan Yun let fall tears of regret. Today's losses had been severe. Zhu Daqiang's voice shook. "Fan Yun, I'm not reconciled." Fan Yun sighed. "Me neither, but do we still have a chance?" Zhu Daqiang gritted his teeth. "There's a chance. Do you remember Haozi?" The name lit a fire in Fan Yun's eyes. Of course, in high school he was Ye Wudao's best friend. "I once helped Haozi out," Zhu Daqiang said quickly. "Maybe we can use him to get closer to Ye Wudao." "Let's go," Fan Yun said, and they ran to catch up. "Mr. Ye," Fan Yun called, voice trembling. Ye Wudao didn't turn. "What is it?" Fan Yun forced herself steady. "We'd like to invite you to the upcoming class reunion." Zhu Daqiang hurried to add, hoping to sweeten the invitation, "Your old friend Haozi will be there too." Ye Wudao responded with a cold, and nothing more. The ambiguous answer made both men uneasy. Fan Yun pressed on. "Haozi's had a hard life. I've been helping him, and I have some leads about the person who broke his leg." At the words "broke his leg," Ye Wudao's whole body stiffened. Someone broke Haozi's leg? His voice was barely controlled. Zhu Daqiang nodded violently. "That's right." A vein throbbed in Ye Wudao's temple. He clenched his fists, and a suffocating killing intent rolled off him. How could anyone dare harm his friend? He swallowed the anger back down and spoke, low and dangerous. "Help me find out who did it. At the reunion, I'll personally make them pay back what they owe. For breaking his leg, I'll make his entire family pay." Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang responded immediately. We'll find them. Before the reunion, we'll give you an answer that satisfies you. Ye Wudao straightened. For now, your manager positions are reinstated. If you investigate this thoroughly, there will be additional rewards. The two were ecstatic. Today, Ye Wudao had rewarded Xiameng with 1% of the shares and rewarded Ren Susu with the chance to work with Renhei Pharmaceutical. Whatever he planned next would surely lift their fortunes. Their chance had come. Chapter 158, Don't Be Ignorant. Ye Wudao still couldn't eat. Ever since the rat incident, he'd had no appetite. Xiameng, having just taken over as general manager, had a dozen things on her mind and wasn't in the mood for a proper meal either. The two of them ate something simple, talked briefly, and then left the restaurant. Ye Wudao heading home, while Xiameng went to find Ren Susu to handle the handover. Just as Ye Wudao walked out, Zhou Hu swaggered in. The notorious bully from Zhou Village, he was here to book a birthday banquet for his girlfriend, and his arrival immediately caught the attention of Fan Yun and Zhu Daqiang. Fan Yun leaned in and whispered, "Daqiang, look at that guy. Doesn't he look like the one from that rat incident?" Zhu Daqiang squinted. "Yeah, I remember him. There's a scar on his neck. It's probably him." Fan Yun snorted. "Well, that was easy. All that searching, and he just walked in." "We need to keep an eye on him," Zhu Daqiang said, voice low and eager. "He could be our ticket up." "I'll watch him here," Fan Yun said. "You go to the monitoring room, check which car he came in, and write down the license plate." Back at the Shu household, the dinner table was crowded and noisy. "Mom, hurry up and serve dinner. Your precious daughter is starving." Shulinger stared longingly at the spread on the table. Li Yuhuan drizzled a little sesame oil into the pork rib soup and said, "Not until Xiaoye gets back. No one touches a chopstick until he's home." Shulinger pouted. "But I'm your real daughter, Mom. Ye Wudao's just an outsider." "You sound like you're the one who was adopted," Cheng Xiaoyu teased with a giggle. "You were a free gift with a phone top-up," Cheng added, and Shulinger kicked at her in mock outrage. "Shut up, you brat. Whose side are you on?" "Come on, Mom," Cheng Xiaoyu said, putting on an innocent face. "Think of Xiaoyuer. She's been running around all day and is starving. Serve dinner so she can be properly fed." Li Yuhuan sighed, trying not to laugh at the bickering. After a while, everyone's anxious waiting paid off. Ye Wudao finally came home, a little late. Li Yuhuan hurried to take off his slippers. "Xiaoye, you must be exhausted." Shu Dahai set out wine glasses and poured 2 generous cups. "Drink with your old man." "Okay, Dad," Ye Wudao replied, accepting the glass. "Sit down, Mom. You worked so hard preparing all these dishes." Li Yuan made sure everyone found a seat, smiling despite her earlier insistence on waiting for Ye's return. Shulinger folded her arms and sniffed. "Ye Wudao, you've been slacking around all day. How dare you enjoy this treatment?" Li Yuan cut in. "What are you talking about? Xiaoye's been busy today. Don't be ungrateful." She turned to Ye. "By the way, Xiaoye, have you booked the hotel for Linger's birthday banquet?" Ye Wudao nodded. "Don't worry, Mom. I booked the Crystal Palace Hotel." Li Yuhuan's expression tightened. "Why that place again? So many relatives and friends will come tomorrow. How much is that going to cost?" Ye Wudao didn't answer her worries directly. He simply raised his glass. "Dad, a toast." Shu Dahai smiled as he clinked his glass with his son's. "Good wine." He drained his cup with satisfaction. Suddenly, Shulinger's curiosity shifted to something more serious. "Ye Wudao, does the demolition of Zhou Village have anything to do with you?" Ye Wudao blinked. "Linger, how come you're asking that all of a sudden?" Shulinger smirked. "Don't act innocent. I looked into it. Renhei Pharmaceutical is planning to build a factory near Zhou Village. The villagers all applied for jobs. Renhei's condition for signing labor contracts is living in the factory dormitories, so the villagers agreed to the demolition." The room fell silent. Shu Dahai was stunned. "Renhei Pharmaceutical is opening a branch in Linhai City?" he asked, incredulous. Shulinger nodded vigorously. "Yes. What's wrong?" Shu Dahai ran a hand over his face in disbelief. "Renhei's huge, one of the big names in Yangxia's pharmaceutical industry. If they set up here, the Linhai government would get hundreds of millions, maybe billions, more in tax revenue." Ye Wudao smiled faintly. "Dad, would you be interested in working with Renhei?" Shu Dahai chuckled bitterly. "You're teasing me, Xiaoye. Renhei's partners are big certified firms. My small clinic wouldn't even get a look for the odd jobs. Don't sell yourself short, Yewudao said. You never know, Rene might already have the contracts ready to sign. Shudahai reached out and pressed his fingers to Yewudao's forehead. He's not running a fever. What nonsense is he talking about? Xiaoye, your tolerance for liquor isn't great. You're already tipsy after so little, Li Yuhan chided. Yewudao was silent, affronted in spirit. You can criticize my character, but not my drinking. That was an insult to his willpower. Willpower was a soldier's soul, after all. Dad, let me pour you another glass, Yewudao said with a smile, lifting his cup. You've worked so hard for this family these past years. The words landed like a warm hand on Shudahai's heart. Xiaoye, you know your old man, he said, beaming. Drink. He had a private thought. Last time I was the one who got drunk because of you. Today, I'm going to get some face back. They clinked glasses and drank. Half an hour later, Shudahai was wobbling, his steps unsteady. Yewudao, by contrast, sat perfectly composed, his expression unchanged and his breath free of alcohol. Shudahai's hand trembled as he raised his glass again. Xiaoye, come on, one more. Please, Dad, spare me. I really can't drink anymore, Yewudao said quickly. I'll compete with you another time. Everyone could see he was giving Shudahai an out and helping him save face. Shudahai nodded magnanimously. All right, I'll let you off this time, kid. Your old man's tolerance isn't something you can compare to. He tried to stand and head for his room, but with a sudden lurch, he collapsed onto the sofa and passed out. Shulinger, irritated, pinched Yewudao. Look what you've done. Gotten my dad drunk again. What are you trying to do to us? Couldn't you have gone easier on him? Let him drink less. Yewudao grinned like an idiot at her. He liked making her glare. She looked so beautiful when she was annoyed. Li Yuhuan, exasperated, dragged Shudahai upright. Don't you even know your own limits? How can you compare yourself to Xiao Ye? You're supposed to be the father-in-law. Act like it. It's embarrassing. Watching the bickering, Cheng Xiaoyu felt a sudden hollow ache. When would she find her other half? She was pretty and pleasant, with admirers aplenty, but after seeing someone as exceptional as Yewudao, how could ordinary men move her? The next morning was Shu Linger's 23rd birthday. In their countryside customs, the 23rd birthday was a major coming-of-age ceremony and called for a big celebration. The house was bustling before dawn, people dressing carefully, relatives being called, last-minute arrangements being made. Shu Dahai picked up the phone and dialed his father, Shu Jiangguo. Though the families had had their share of nasty disputes, at times coming close to outright enmity, a father and son were not so easily sundered. Besides, for a coming-of-age ceremony, the grandfather was the senior representative. His presence was essential. The call connected quickly. Dad, Linger's coming-of-age banquet is at the Crystal Palace Hotel, Shu Dahai said. Do you want me to come pick you and Big Brother up, or will you come on your own? Shu Jiangguo's voice was cold. I won't be coming. What? Shu Dahai's panic flared. Dad, you're Linger's grandfather, the elder representative. How can you not come? What's more important than her coming-of-age ceremony? Shu Jiangguo replied. Chen Mei's family is hosting guests from Rene Pharmaceutical today and specifically asked us to accompany them. Rene Pharmaceutical and Chen Mei's family both have military ties. We can't afford to offend either of them, so I have to go. Shu Dahai was stunned. How did Chen Mei's family get connected with Rene Pharmaceutical? 160. Do something for me. What Shu Dahai didn't know was that ever since Chen Sanhe heard Rene Pharmaceutical was planning to build a factory near Zhou village, he'd realized rare medicinal herbs had been found in the area. He'd pulled every string he could to get hold of someone from Renhe. Both Chen Sanhe and the people at Renhe had military ties, so it wasn't hard for him to make contact. The banquet he was hosting for the Renhe delegation was a thinly veiled attempt to pry for inside information. Inviting Shu Jiangguo, meanwhile, was a calculated move aimed at Shu Linger. Everyone knew today was her coming-of-age ceremony, and being denied her grandfather's blessing would be humiliating and unlucky. Shu Dahai had tried to call his father. On the other end, Shu Jiangguo's voice had been cold and final. Hang up. Don't call again. Dad, no. Please. Even if you won't stay for the whole banquet, at least come and show your face, Shu Dahai pleaded. But Shu Jiangguo had already hung up. He sank into the chair, stunned. He hadn't expected his own father to behave like this, not to attend his granddaughter's coming of age, and not because he had other family matters, but because he was going to someone else's banquet. How could a relative be so cold and ruthless? Li Yuan was livid. Shudahai, what did he say? Should we go pick him up, or is he coming on his own? Shudahai lowered his head and sighed. He refused. He got an invitation from Chen Mei and said he won't come. What? Li Yuan exploded. How can he possibly not come? Our family already thinks poorly of me. If he doesn't come this time, I'll have no standing at all. Call him again, she demanded. Shudahai took a shaky breath. I've already called twice. Listening to his tone, he means it. He won't come. Tears welled up in Li Yuan's eyes. You're worthless. I must have been blind to marry you. It doesn't matter how much shame I bring on myself, she went on, her voice trembling with fury. But this is our daughter's coming of age. How is it a proper ceremony without her grandfather's blessing? You're not fit to be my husband, and you're certainly not fit to be Linger's father, she spat. Shudahai bowed his head even lower. I'm sorry. I'm useless, he muttered, as if punishing himself for the failure. The shouting drew Shu Linger and Ye Wudao into the room. After hearing what had happened, Shu Linger's eyes filled with tears. Grandpa's so cruel. He doesn't treat us like family at all. What kind of grandpa is he? Shudahai buried his face in his hands. Linger, I'm so sorry. I'm a failure. You can scold me if it makes you feel better. Ye Wudao came over and put a hand on Shudahai's shoulder. Don't worry, Dad. They'll come to the ceremony. They have to. Shudahai only shook his head. You don't understand his temper. If he says he won't come, he really won't. Just then Li Yuan's phone rang. She answered in a forced calm. Hello? On the line was her eldest maternal brother. We're already at Crystal Palace. We're waiting there. Are you coming or not? Li Yuan blinked in surprise. But I didn't tell anyone we were holding it at Crystal Palace. Never mind. We're on our way, she said, then turned to the others. That's strange. Apparently Grandma, my eldest uncle, and my eldest aunt are already there. Come on, let's go to Crystal Palace right now. They rushed out the door. Ye Wudao lingered at the back of the group, taking out his phone. He thumbed in a quick message to Yao Xiazi. Do something for me. A moment later, Yao Xiazi's reply came through. I heard Chen Mei and Chen Yaji invited people from Renhei Pharmaceutical to ask about the medicinal fields. Do you want me to look into it?